بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. So continuing from the last lecture, we were at the part where the author says, I can paste this, just a minute. والدليل قوله تعالى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. So that is the proof for the four different issues that we must learn: knowledge, action, calling, and patience. Just as a small recap. And now we come to the part where ash-Shaafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala comments on this surah. So we begin. Qaala ash-Shaafi'i, which means Qaala is a past tense verb of the word qawl. Qawl, that is to say something. And as you may remember, for example, with the verb to enter, dakhala, the infinitive being dukhul, of course, dukhul, to enter. So when we conjugate the verb, we say in past tense dakhala, meaning he entered, or also it entered. Present tense yeah, yadkhulu, present meaning he is entering. And the imperative, meaning an order, udkhul, enter. The obvious difference here between between the two conjugations is, three conjugations, is that the first two is he. Enter is actually you, second person. But let's digress from that. With regards to qawl, I believe perhaps we have actually mentioned and touched upon this. The waw here is a weak letter. So waw, yeah, and also alif, of course, are weak letters. So the fundamental letters of qaala and qawl is qaf, waw, lam. So as opposed to dukhul, where it is dal, kha, lam, these ones are not These ones are not weak letters, they're standard strength letters. In the case of qawl, we have waw, which is weak. And weak meaning that it cannot uphold its own form, or it cannot sustain in all cases its own representation. It will change, it will transition into another letter. For example, qawl, if we say fa'il, meaning the one who performs an action, like dukhul, someone that is entering, who is an enterer. Dakhil. I can write that up. Someone who enters, and it also means inside. So if you say ana dakhil, it means I'm inside. Ana dakhilul bayt, for example. So with regards to qawl being represented on this pattern, fa'il dakhil, kharij, you say قائل. قائل, someone who says something. Obviously there's an object to this verb. So we can notice here that the waw changed into a hamza on a ya, actually. This is a ya without dots. قائل. So when conjugating the verb qawl, or the verb which is constructed from qawl, we will also see a lot of transforming. Okay, so in the past tense, it would be qawala. And yeah, let's take them all. So a small recap on these, the conjugation, the rules of conjugation. The fatha here, the haraka on the middle letter, is remembered for all words. So it is different, it differs. Fatha, I believe, is the most common, then comes kasra. Quite uncommon in the past tense is dhamma. But in any case, it's unique, let's say, for each word. So dakhala has a fatha. Qaala in reality would have a fatha. Kharaja has a fatha. But hasuna, being good, or saluha also meaning good, has a dhamma. Alima, he knew, has a kasra on the middle letter. Fahima, alima, and so on and so forth. So they have differing middle letter harakas. Okay. In the case of the present tense, we also have a different haraka. We need to remember, we need to memorize these for each word. Just as in the past tense, we need to also remember them, memorize them in the present tense. They do not have any real relation with each other, but some combinations are more common than others, right? And the imperative form takes the haraka of the present form, tense, sorry. So the imperative tense takes the haraka on the middle letter of the present tense. And here we go. This alif here, or this hamzatul wasl, I should say, is added. It's not a strict, let's say, integral part of the word, but it is added because there is a sukoon here. And any Arabic word may never start with a sukoon unless there is another word preceding it which has a haraka. So if not, then we add the hamzatul wasl to facilitate a haraka to precede it. And in this case, the haraka on, I mean, it is never written, to be clear. This haraka is never written, but which haraka it is depends on the middle haraka here. And it is the same, except in the case of fatha. If it is a fatha, then this one becomes kasra. That's the rule. Okay? There are literally virtually no exceptions to this rule that I know of. So that is why we have in the Al-Fatiha, we have I'm sorry. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. الصراط المستقيم. Let me actually write that out. المستقيم. So ihdi here comes from the word huda, and also hedi, which I believe they are synonymous. So yahdi, hada, yahdi, ihd. Ihd. So if we just disregard the fact that the ya here has become a kasra, it's because that the imperative is supposed to have a sukoon, so it is removed effectively. But we can see here that there is a hamzatul wasl, and the correct haraka to pronounce here is the kasra. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. But it is preceded by نستعين, right? إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. So if you would pronounce or read these two verses together without stopping, the noon here from نستعين, which has a dhamma, the pronunciation or the pronounced sentence becomes نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. So that is the context of that. Some asides here. Na means we. It's supposed to have the fatha because it's the object of the verb. اهدنا يعني نحن, the object of the verb gets a fatha, but the nahnu becomes a na, which is connected. It's the case with all pronouns. As-sirat is a second object to the verb huda, because you guide someone on something or to something, so it gets a fatha as well. And al-mustaqim is actually a sifa. We have not mentioned this class of words for sifa or or it's rather a role which the word can play, actually, or take. صفة. It means an adjective or an attribute. Okay, so it's an attribute of sirat, and as all attributes, they take the same haraka ruling as their well, the possessor of the attribute. Okay, so that's the quick analysis of this verse. Some points of benefit, inshallah. Let's see. So this is the, let's say, strictly speaking, expected conjugation of the verb قال or قول. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So because of the weak letter here, this waw is actually changed. So قولا becomes قال. Right? يقول is not, in fact, yeah, it's changed actually. It is changed. Sorry. It's changed in one subtle way, and that is the dhamma here is moved. Change the color again. It's moved to the preceding letter. So the waw in itself has a sukun, and the lam is unchanged. Okay, so يقول, not يقول, because of the difficulty in pronouncing that. قول يقول أقول. No, that's not. It doesn't remain that way either. So it becomes only قل. So what happened here is that أقول, I'll write it down once more. What happened is basically that dhamma here moved to the preceding letter, just as in the present tense. And then we had, let me actually move it physically. Just move this. Okay, so then there is no sukun left on the qaf, right? So the hamzatul wasl also it is well, it doesn't remain anyway, so it ceases to exist basically. And qul, here we have a sukun, as I mentioned in the present tense, a sukun remains, but then we have another sukun here, and something that is essentially forbidden in the Arabic language is what they call iltiqa as-sakinain, which means the meeting of the two sukuns. Let me just write this out. Iltiqa, just forgive my sloppy writing here, let's just ignore it. التقاء التقاء الساكنين, meaning the meeting of the two sukuns, sakin, or rather this two sakin letters, meaning two letters that have sukun. So two letters having sukun may never meet. They must always be separated by another letter. Okay, or otherwise the situation must otherwise be avoided. So in this case, we do not actually interject anything in between here, but we like avoid the situation by taking out the waw. So uqwul becomes qul. As in the surah, you know, there are four. There are 5 surahs beginning with قل قل هو الله أحد سورة الإخلاص قل أعوذ برب الفلق قل أعوذ برب الناس قل يا أيها الكافرون, and the 5th is سورة الجن قل أوحي إلي. Just a little فائدة, point of benefit inshallah. So all in all, the moral of the story is that Qaala means he said. And if we mention the person performing the act or the action afterwards, which should always have a dhamma, by the way, then the he part of the translation is dropped. So ash-Shaafi'i said. Rahimahullah ta'ala. This has been explained previously. And then one point that could be mentioned here is that we have a sentence here. Okay, and the sentence in itself is what in this sentence, the preceding sentence, ash-Shaafi'i said something. He said, ash-Shaafi'i said, right? What did he say? Well, he said this. So the sentence in itself is actually deserving of a fatha because it is the object of the verb to say. But as as the object in this case is not a single word, nor is it something compound, I guess. It is a complex object containing several words. Then the fatha is not shown. So they say fatha muqaddara. Wallahu alam. I can write this out if you'd like. Fathatun and hidden. I mean, in grammatical contexts, you use the word muqaddara. It's not the really good way to use in any other context. So it doesn't mean hidden in other contexts. So muqaddara, you can't say like, okay, where's the money? In al-nuqud, hiya muqaddara. You can't say that. It doesn't make sense. You're not conveying anything meaningful by saying that. So you need to say something else like makhfiya or something like that, or mukhabba'a, for example. So fathatun muqaddaratun. This is a word that is quite unique to grammatical subjects, meaning a hidden fatha. And what did ash-Shaafi'i say? Let me just cut this image up a bit. So we will analyze it on one line. Here we go. What's this? Okay. So what did ash-Shafi'i say? This quote, I mean, this version of the quote I have not seen before this particular PDF version that I downloaded on the net. So it is equivalent to the quote that I'm used to seeing, but it is not identical. So let's take this one, and I will later, after explaining it, inshallah, I will explain or mention what the common wording that I'm used to seeing, how that goes. Okay. So, هذه, Shafi'i said this, هذه السورة لو ما أنزل الله حجة على خلقه إلا هي لكفتهم. So, هذه meaning this. It is the feminine form of هذا. I'll write this in black actually. هذا. هذا masculine. هذه feminine. And what is feminine? It is a surah. هذه السورة. Okay, so هذه and surah both refer to the same thing. هذه meaning the thing that I am pointing to, literally or figuratively, let's say, or let's say physically or literally. So if I'm pointing to it physically, or if I'm referring to it by just mentioning it, then that is what هذه means. Okay, that's the literal meaning of هذه and هذا. So a surah is also, it's not synonymous, but they are in a sense interchangeable in this context, in this particular sentence. So a surah, هذه, this chapter, right? A surah. And surah, meaning chapter, is something, the meaning of surah is actually something that encapsulates something. So actually the, what is called in English, it's called a city wall. A city wall, which effectively encapsulates a city, is called a sur. So if you go to Istanbul, for example, they will say, even in Turkish, they will say sur. And this word used for wall, I don't know if it's a circular wall that is completely encapsulating something, that I cannot say, but this word is used in Surah Al-Ahzab, I believe. فَضُرِبَ بَيْنَهُمْ بِسُورٍ. When a wall is established or put up or appears between the believers and the munafiqeen, the hypocrites. And Allah knows best. So, هذه السورة, meaning a chapter, something that is like divided by the chapter dividers, obviously. That is the meaning of a surah. It is not used, this word is not used for any other book. Surah. I mean, what I know. From my knowledge, I've never heard anyone use this word for regular chapters in a book. So you use bab, and for verses in the Quran, you use ayatun, which is basically a sign from Allah, almost like a miracle. But in, for example, poetry, you don't say ayah, you say faqra, faqarat. You don't say ayat, you say faqarat, meaning, I guess, yeah, like parts, I guess. So this surah, this chapter, write this out. Chapter. This chapter. Low, which there's a hadith. I believe the wording is approximately لو من باب الشيطان أو من عمل الشيطان أو من باب الشيطان I believe Allah knows best. If ما أنزل I believe I will talk about this word in more detail in the next lecture. But أنزل, long story short, is that it means sent down. Really, he sent down. But as we have Allah here with the Dhamma, we know that it is not he. We should translate it to. And ma, in this case, means negation, not. If Allah had not sent down. Just a minute. لو ما أنزل الله حجة على خلقه إلا هي so حجة meaning I believe that the most correct, if a bit elaborate, translation is for حجة is an indisputable a proof. That being said, I believe hujjah is coming from hajjah, so it is like an argument, okay? But this is like, it's in this sense, it is used as a final argument. There is no argumentation after this, and Allah knows best. Okay, so indisputable proof, that is the general context and sense you're trying to convey when you use this most commonly. Okay? So, for example, you do not really use hujjah that commonly anyway, in any case, if the proof is not, if it is disputable, if it's just an argument that's maybe false. So hujjah, according to the common usage, is a correct proof that is not disputable. Even though I may, leave some room for a possibility for hujjah linguistically to be wrong, but not according to common practice when using this word. It is an indisputable proof, in fact. Let me just clean up these lines a little bit. So these following words are quite easy, inshallah. So ala is a preposition giving kasra to the following word, the connected word, meaning over. Over. So we have a kasra here because of the grammatical position of the word khalq, because it is mentioned in the connection to, or in relation to, ala. Khalqi. And this kasra, the ha here is the pronoun huwa, but as it is mudaf ilayh here, it's supposed to have a kasra, but that is not why we have a kasra in this place, because in this case, because for example, if we see babuhu, his door, babuhu, or sayyaratuhu, his car, has a dhamma, even though it is mudaf ilayh and it should have a kasra. But as we've always said, and I reiterate that pronouns are inflexible. They do not follow the regular grammatical rules of which haraka is supposed to be applied to the end of it. The reason for this kasra is solely because of phonetical reasons, because the kasra which is preceding it, khalqihi. So it's only because it would sound kind of strange and difficult to pronounce. Khalqihu. So you say khalqihi. Illa, except. And khalqihi. I'll just write this in. Khalqihi means creation. Khalq. His creation. I'll just retrofit these into the arrows here. So. And the reason for mudaf ilay here is his creation, right? So in a way here, khalq, which is an infinitive, the verb is khalaqa yakhluqu ukhluq. Khalq here means makhluq, yani what is created. So infinitives regularly refer to the verb, the actual action, khalq. It's the action. But it can also mean what is created. So in this case it means it means, my writing is a bit different today, I don't know why. Makhluq. Khalq here means makhluq, and this is something that Ibn Qayyim mentioned in his Nuniyya, that the masdar can mean the object of the verb. So khalqullah, هذا khalqullah, meaning هذا makhluqullah. This is Allah's creation, meaning this is the created things of Allah, that those things that Allah created. It is not that like saying هذا khalqullah, يعني you point to, for example, a beautiful forest or anything, and you say this is Allah's creation. You do not actually mean that this is the actual act of creating. You are referring to what has been created by the act, right? So that's my point. Illa hiya. Hiya meaning it, or she in some cases, of course, primarily perhaps even. But in this case, because we know what is being referred to is the surah, and this is the actual purpose of a pronoun, to refer back to something which has already been mentioned explicitly or implicitly. So هذه السورة لو ما أنزل الله حجة على خلقه إلا هي. So the meaning is, this chapter, like proverbial colon here, لو ما أنزل الله حجة على خلقه إلا هي. If Allah had not sent down any indisputable proof over His creation, except that, or it would have sufficed them. So the meaning of this, before I go into the last word, which I'll do briefly, is that this surah entails these 4 points: al-ilm, al-amal, al-da'wa, التواصي بالحق, والتواصي بالصبر. يعني knowledge, action, calling, and patience. So it is, in a way, this is encompassing the whole religion. And as an aside, this is the answer of Sheikh Ibn Baz when he was asked, like, how did you attain such success in your life, or something similar. So he said just al-ilm, al-amal, al-da'wa, and al-sabr. He basically said this. He basically paraphrased, if you want to see it as, he paraphrased the Usool Thalaatha, or if he paraphrased Surah Al-Asr. which is allowed, by the way. To paraphrase the Quran, Ibn Qayyim does so extensively, actually, in his Nuniyah. So that's the meaning of Shafi'i's statement, his qawl here, qawl al-Shafi'i, that it is so widely encompassing that it is enough in itself to, like, it is a very, very, very sufficient summary of the religion. And the different explanations, and Allah knows best, they say that it is not the intention, it was not the intention of Shafi'i to say that this surah is comparable to the whole religion, or that it that it includes every detail of the religion. Of course not, but that is the explanation of it, and Allah knows best. And the last part here, the lam here, is for connecting the low with the low. So low meaning if. So if I say, for example, if if the man would have come, then he would have hit me. So maybe an example with bad imagination, but if I say this in Arabic, low جاء, like in Surah Al-Fath, إذا جاء نصر الله with Dhamma, because it's one that's performing the act. لو جاء الرجل, and you can notice I am not spelling out the harakat here, because we have already mentioned this word and written it out several times before. لو جاء الرجل, if he had come, then what would be the consequence? So the consequence, I believe, or the effect perhaps, I don't know the exactly correct word for this, la, hit, la, and I will make a little divisor here, la, ضرب ni, لضربني. If the man had come, he would have hit me. So here we have هذه السورة لو ما أنزل الله حجة على خلقه إلا هي لكفتهم. And it would, the meaning is here, long story short, it would have sufficed them. Kafat is a past tense of kafa. Kafa, and meaning, the meaning is several things. In this context, it means it sufficed. It can also, in some contexts, meaning he saved, to save someone. Allah huwa al-kafi. There should be some example of this. Allah yakfina sharra. Allah yakfina sharrahu. May Allah save us from his evil. So kafa is the past tense. Yakfi is the present tense, and I guess the imperative is ikfi, like yahdi, hada, yahdi, ihdi, like ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. So ikfi meaning the imperative. So Allah yakfina, I will write this without harakat. Inshallah, you don't need them. Here I will write it out because it's a new word. Shar means sharri ghasiqin idha waqab. Sharra, and this is a fatha because it is the object of the verb. Sharra, who, it is mudaf. Here, mudaf ilayh. Sharrahu. May Allah save us from his, meaning the some person you have mentioned now, from his evil. Or for example, may Allah, يعني Allah يكفينا شر الظالمين, for example. So yeah, kafa. Kafa meaning it sufficed in this case. Okay, and if we say in the past tense that someone went, you say ذهب, right? ذهب. But if we say that she went, you say ذهبت. This one, the ba here moves under the tooth. Okay, ذهبت. She went. And the same thing is here. Kafa, kafat, like this, but the weak letter here is dropped. Kafat, like kafat. Okay, so let's make a little divider here. Like kafat hum. And we put in this. Except it, yeah, it is here, and la would perhaps mean would. Sufficed them. And I want to go into more detail regarding the morphology of anzala, but let's do that in the coming lecture, inshallah ta'ala. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك